Welcome to the 2020 MLB season recap. I am Tonnis, and my partner Blake Hutson is right next to me. We will be going over every single team and how they performed for this year's 2020 MLB season. Of course, it was only a 60-game season, so not a huge sample size. We had some surprises, so we are excited to go in depth and see how everyone did. Bit of a preview as to how we will do things. My partner Blake will start off by introducing the team, give a brief summary of how their season went, and then I will go over a few notable players that performed well on their team. If you are watching with us today, you will see on our slides I have two notable players, the best hitter and pitcher from every team, as well as a few statistics. For the hitters, I have a nice 3 slash line, one of my favorite statistics. First slash is batting average, second one's on base percentage, and the third one is slugging percentage. Another one of my favorite stats is OPS plus. If you don't know what that is, basically it takes OPS, which is on base plus slugging percentage, combines them, and then compares it to the rest of the league. So a 100 OPS plus is the league average. Anything above that means you are better than the league average by that many points. Anything below that is below league average. Same thing for ERA and ERA plus with pitchers. So I will let Blake go ahead and take away with the Boston Red Sox.
All right, so the first team we have here today is the Boston Red Sox, fifth in the AL East this year with a 24-36 record. And just for the format of this, we'll be doing it by division. We'll start with the AL East, then the Central, then the West, same in the National League. Boston Red Sox this year, not an exciting team. Finished fifth in the AL East, coming off high on their 2018 World Series. They had to fire their manager Alex Cora because he was involved in the Houston Astros cheating scandal in 2018 when he was a bench coach for the Astros. Boston Red Sox lost some pieces. They lost Mitch Moreland this year to the Padres. And, Red Sox, not much to talk about. They didn't have a great year.
About their only notable player this year for the Red Sox has been Xander Bogaerts. Always been just a great hitter his entire career. Hit 300 this year with a 131 OPS plus. So great player. I definitely see Boston trying to move him sometime this offseason. He has a good amount of time left on his contract, so they probably could get a pretty solid return from him. Pitching, nothing notable. Of course, Chris Sale missed the entire year, so not much to talk about there.
All right, our next team on the list is going to be the Baltimore Orioles, fourth in the AL East this year with a 25-35 record. Baltimore Orioles, same with the Red Sox, didn't have a great year. The Orioles coming off one of the worst baseball records in baseball last year. This year, they looked competitive for a little bit, but they had just fallen off. Orioles not a great team, fourth in the AL East.
Yeah, and the Orioles have a few good players. Jose Iglesias is definitely one of my favorites. Pretty sure he won the batting title here in the American League. And especially since he only got a one-year contract from Baltimore for only $3 million. Kind of surprised me over the offseason. I definitely see him signing a good contract. A lot of teams are in the looking for a shortstop right now, so he definitely has some good options with that 373 batting average and 400 on base percentage. Starting rotation, not much to talk about. Tanner Scott did have a good year in the bullpen with a 1.31 ERA, but nothing really special coming out of Baltimore.
Third in the AL East this year is the Toronto Blue Jays with a 32-28 record, and they'll be the 8th seed in this year's playoffs, facing the Rays. And just a note, we will be having an expanded playoffs this year with 16 teams, 8 from each league. New format this year that MLB is trying out. The Blue Jays were a really, really surprising team this year. Finished third in the AL East, and they got some really, really good performances this year from the likes of Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Kevin Biggio, and the veteran Teoscar Hernandez had a great year. And, the Blue Jays, surprise team, finished third in the AL East.
The Blue Jays here are kind of a team that's a little ahead of schedule, as you'll see from a lot of teams that is thanks to the expanded playoff, they're able to make the postseason. Blue Jays have a very bright future ahead, of course, with the three young stars, the three sons of former big leaguers, and Kevin Biggio, Bo Bichette, and Vladimir Guerrero. Of course, Teoscar Hernandez really worked on his swing, and it really showed this year, slashing 289, 340, and 579, hitting 16 homers. So, a great year for Teoscar Hernandez, kind of a surprise one, but really great year from him. Hyunjin Ryu, big free agent signing for them to bolster their rotation, had a great year in the rotation for them. So, it'll be interesting to see how Toronto does, and I'm excited to watch them for more years to come.
All right, our second place team in the AL East this year was the New York Yankees with a 33-27 record, and they would be the 5 seed in this year's playoffs, facing the Cleveland Indians. The Yankees had a great year this year, although they did not look like one of the best teams in the majors like they do most years. in the middle of the year. They were kind of slumping. They were on a losing streak and they were struggling. But the Yankees, they always find a way to dig deep, make the postseason. I believe they'll be going on a deep postseason run as this franchise always finds a way to dig deep in the postseason. Luke Voit, great hitter this year. The Yankees just have hitters all in their lineup really good. And then, of course, the big free agent signing, Garrett Cole, pitched very well for the Yankees this year.
The Yankees are a team, when I look at their lineup, and I just look at all 9 people in their lineup, they scare me. There is no easy out in this entire Yankees lineup. That is just how stacked it is. Of course, you have the big ones, Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton, while they had some injury problems at the beginning of the year, and is the reason why the Yankees struggled a bit and almost fell out of the postseason at one point. Um, but a lot of their backups, Mike Tauchman, Luke Voigt, really stepped up this year to carry them. Kyle Higashioka is a big one, especially since Gary Sanchez did not have a good year at all. Of course, Luke Voigt probably will finish top 3 in MVP. He's not my personal pick to win it, but incredible breakout year from him with 22 homers this year. Then, of course, Garrett Cole, their $300 million signing with a nice 2.84 ERA. I think Yankee fans were expecting a little more out of him. It's not exactly what you want to pay over $300 million for, but solid year from Cole. He looked better at the end of the year, so we'll have to see how that contract ends up in the next few years.
Quick note, Yankees playing the Indians in the playoffs. They also, one of their great hitters on the team, Gio Urshela, who they got from the Indians as a steal. All right, let's go to the number 1 team in the AL East, the Tampa Bay Rays, with a record of 40-20. This year, the Rays, they were one of my sleeper picks for in the AL East, and they actually finished first in the AL East. Normally, the Tampa Bay Rays are not a team that you would think of as a first-place dominant team. And in my mind, I think they're still a sleeper in the playoffs. They have a sneaky good lineup with all 9 hitters being very good hitters, very average hitters. And Brandon Lau had a great year this year. I'm excited to see what the Rays can do in this year's playoffs.
Well, it's funny you call them a sleeper because they are the number 1 seed in the entire American League. So it is a little bit rare to see the Rays as the number 1 seed because no one thinks about them like that. But they still had a 40-20 record this year, which is just incredible from a team like the Rays. Never really had that dominant standout hitter all year. They just have a full lineup of just really solid and consistent guys. G-Man Choi, Randy Arozarena, just to name a few. But Brandon Lowe, I think he was their standout. Again, not nothing to really blow you away, but he was their best hitter with a nice 362 on base percentage. And then, of course, going over to their rotation, just incredible rotation with a trio of Blake Snell, Charlie Morton, and Tyler Glasnow, as well as just a really solid bullpen. Nick Anderson really stepped up this year with a .55 ERA. They don't really have a dominant closer. They don't have someone that is just in that closer role. They kind of rotate it around a bit, but every single person that they put there has gotten the job done this year. So great job by the Rays this year.
Yeah, speaking of the Rays, many people don't see him as that number 1 seed. Maybe a lot of people see him as a sleeper in the playoffs. They think of the Yankees as dominating the AL East. All right, let's head over to the AL Central. We have the Detroit Tigers coming in at 5th in the AL Central this year with a 23-35 record. All right, the Detroit Tigers, not much to speak on here. Just like the Red Sox, in a way, not having the greatest year. They did have some standout players like Crone and Scope this year, but Tigers, not a great team.
The Tigers did have a little bit of a hot start to the year, taking 2 out of 3 from Cincinnati, which I think definitely surprised a lot of people, excuse me. And they were one of those teams this year where in a 60-game season, they're just going to go out and see what they could do because they have absolutely nothing to lose. They looked solid coming out of the gate, but I think that injury to C.J. Cron early in the year really just sealed their deal as they were never really a contender this year. Not much to write home about on the offense. Rotation-wise, I am big on Spencer Turnbull. I think he has a bright future ahead of him. I got to watch him pitch a little bit this year, and I really enjoyed watching him pitch. So, besides that, they have Casey Mize coming up, 2 other prospects, but not much to talk about for the Tigers.
All right, over here in the 4th place in the American League Central of the Kansas City Royals, 26-34 record, lands them 4th in the AL Central this year. Once again, not a great team. Team built on speed with Adalberto Mondesi, Nicky Lopez. Got a bunch of sneaky fast guys in their lineup. Brad Keller had a great year, and one of their younger guys, Brady Singer, also was able to get into a few games and pitch this year for the Royals, but nothing to speak of for the Royals.
Yeah, not much to talk about. Salvador Perez did have a really good year, bouncing back, slushing 333, 353, and 633. Excuse me. Not exactly what many people expect out of Salvi. I kind of always, for the past few years, I viewed him as just washed up. So I was really surprised to see that. Again, great season for Brad Keller. Watched him pitch a bit and just shut down the opposition, but just not much to bolster the lineup really in KC, and they just weren't going to contend this year.
All right. Going to third place in the AL Central, the Chicago White Sox with a 35-25 record. And I'm surprised by this White Sox team and how they got third place in the AL Central. They had held the number one spot in the American League for a few weeks before going into the final few weeks of the season where they lost 8 out of their last 10 games. They fell all the way to the 7th seed, facing the Athletics in the playoffs. Some notable players and events this year for the White Sox. They were able to get a no-hit performance out of Lucas Giolito against the Pirates this year. Giolito, one of the top pitchers in the league, very good for the White Sox. And one of the MVP frontrunners, Jose Abreu, is on the White Sox, slugging 19 home runs this year. And it'll be the 7th seed facing the Athletics in the playoffs. Good season for the Chicago White Sox.
Well, we talked about Lucas Giolito kind of being their ace, but I was really surprised about Dallas Keuchel. I had written him off for the past few years, but he came back this year. He was hurt a bit, but he still put up a 1.99 ERA, which is really solid. Of course, not a huge strikeout pitcher, but hey, I mean, you're getting outs. What's the difference? So, great bounce back here for Dallas Keuchel for the White Sox. Really helped propel them into the playoffs, even though they did collapse a bit down the stretch. Jose Abreu just had an incredible year. I think we've all kind of been waiting for Abreu to do this, and he finally showed up this year. He's looking 19 home runs, and he is my personal MVP pick for the American League.
All right. Second in the American League Central this year, we have the Cleveland Indians, a 35-25 record. They'll be the 4 seed facing the Yankees in the playoffs. An all-around great year for the Cleveland Indians. One of the teams that I didn't think would have a great year, but the Indians did have a really good year. They had Shane Bieber. That starting rotation is dominant, with Bieber, amongst other guys, not starting rotation. Of course, you got Jose Ramirez and Francisco Lindor having really good offensive seasons for the Indians.
Those other guys in the rotation would be Carlos Carrasco. They did trade Mike Clevenger, which still really baffles me. They've got a lot of they had a lot of control with him still, and I'm surprised that they traded him like that. I feel like it goes more to his situation with him sneaking out of the hotel with another great starting pitcher, Zach Plesac, in that rotation. Jose Ramirez had an incredible bounce back year. I had no idea he was even performing that well until I got on Twitter and saw his slash line for this year. So incredible bounce back year for Jose Ramirez. Will probably finish top 3 in the MVP voting this year, as well as Shane Bieber, who is just the obvious front runner for the Cy Young. Incredible seasons from the two of them.
All right, the number one team in the American League East this year, or American League Central this year, is the Minnesota Twins with a 36-24 record. They'll be the 3 seed in the American League this year, facing the Astros. Let's see, the Twins have a 16-game losing streak in the playoffs. Can they snap it this year? They've lost 16 consecutive games in the playoffs. See if they can get it done this year against the Astros in a 3-game wild card series. Twins had a great year overall. Got some really good performances out of Nelson Cruz, Luis Arias, to name a few, and a great starting rotation with Kenta Maeda heading that.
Yeah, Nelson Cruz at 40 years old, I mean, he might still be on steroids for all we know, because it absolutely baffles me how a 40-year-old can hit 16 homers in 60 games and hit 303. So, incredible season from the big guy, as well as that big trade they made to acquire Kenta Maeda. I was a little baffled by the move at first, giving up a guy like Brusdar Graterol. Really high on that kid. I think he's going to have a great career, but Maeda really broke out this year. Put up a 2.7 ERA, just looked really solid for Minnesota to help out that rotation. So let's see if they can finally snap that losing streak that they have in the playoffs this year.
The Texas Rangers finishing in 5th this year with one of the worst records in baseball this year. Nothing much about the Rangers. Couldn't get it done this year. They had Lance Lynn as their ace in the rotation. They got him. Pretty good year for him. Joey Gallo hit really well this year. Not much to say about the Rangers.
Yeah, like you said, there's not much to say. Joey Gallo, he got on base hit a 300 on base percentage, but hit 181. I don't know. We don't really talk about average that much, but when you're hitting 181, that's not much to write home about. Only 10 homers from the big guy, so not much to write about their offense. If Joey Gallo is really your best player, Lance Lynn, another great season from him. I'm not sure what the Rangers did to him to make him lights out again, but great year from him. I was really shocked to see him not traded at the deadline, but the Rangers have a bit of a ways to go until they want to call themselves contenders again.
All right, in fourth place this year in the AL West, we have the Anaheim Angels, also known as the Los Angeles Angels. Got a 26-34 record. Obviously, fourth in the AL West. Not a great year for the Angels. Once again, Mike Trout shines. His supporting cast is just not there.
Mike Trout still just cannot get any support behind him with the Angels. I was surprised to see them go out and pay a lot of money for Anthony Rendon. He had a great year this year, but they need pitching, not more bats. And that really showed again this year. A great bounce back year from Dylan Bundy, putting up a nice 3.29 ERA. Was not expecting that from him, so I'm happy to see him pitching well again. But besides that, they just have nobody in that rotation or bullpen, and that is why they still cannot get over that hump.
Right. Third in the AL West this year is the Seattle Mariners, the 27-33 record. The Seattle Mariners had a chance at the end of the year to get into the playoffs, which really surprised me because I didn't think the Mariners would be a great team this year. Not anyone notable per se for the Seattle Mariners. They had a pretty good year, even though they didn't make the playoffs. Kind of surprised they had a 27-33 record.
Yeah, the rookie Kyle Lewis did have a solid year with a 126 OPS plus. I feel like they have a bright future ahead of them with rookies like Jared Kelenic coming up. So just a lot of prospects in their farm system. I feel like they're getting kind of close, but they're not there just quite yet. Marco Gonzalez as well had a really nice bounce back year for Seattle.
All right, second place in the AL West is the Houston Astros, or shall we call them the Houston Trastros, with a 29-31 record. Coming off that 2017 World Series victory and the cheating scandal, they had a new manager this year, Dusty Baker. He is known for getting his teams to the playoffs, but he cannot win a playoff series. That's what he's known for. Managed with the Cubs, Giants, Reds, Nationals, cannot get those teams except the Cubs past the DS series. So I think that it was a really good idea to get Dusty Baker this year because he's sort of a veteran manager and he could help the Astros get through all of the criticism they're facing from the media and everyone in the baseball community about the cheating scandal. And surprisingly, with a 29-31 record below 500 with the expanded playoffs, they sneak into a playoff spot, the 6th seed, second in the AL West. Just shows how weak that division is. And another notable thing that we could say about this year was Jose Altuve just did not look like himself this year. Took the criticism very hard. He was guessing at every pitch, just could not hit anything. And I think it shows when you don't have trash cans. Maybe you just can't be a great hitter.
I will say, I think having Dusty Baker as manager is the perfect punishment for the Astros because they might make the postseason, but they will not get very far. So, on that note, George Springer is about the only hitter who the cheating scandal did not hurt. Really solid year from him, slugging 14 homers at a 359 on base percentage. The free agency coming up, I think this kind of reinforced that he will get a nice contract coming up this winter. I'm not sure if he will come back to Houston. It's hard to say. It really is. Rotation didn't look that strong. Of course, they lost Justin Verlander early, and he'll be out for all of next year as well. Their best pitcher was really Zach Greinke, who did not pitch that well with a 4.03 ERA. They had a ton of rookies come out of their bullpen who actually got the job done this year, so Astros barely sneaking in.
All right. We have in first place in the AL West, we have the Oakland Athletics. They were the front runner for the division this year, and after the first 2 weeks of the season, they were the clear favorite and the clear winner of that division. At the beginning of the year, they were up 5.5 games on the second place team, so we knew the Athletics were going to get in first this year. They had a 36-24 record, and they were the second seed overall in the American League, facing the 7th seed White Sox in the playoffs. Sean Murphy had a surprise year for the Athletics, hitting really well, hitting 7 home runs. And they got really good performances out of their rookie pitcher and coming up in the farm system, Jesus Luzardo. Great year for the Athletics. Can't wait to see what they can do in the playoffs.
The Athletics are one of those teams, like the Rays, where they don't really have that dominant hitter in the lineup. Their best hitter, when I was looking at their team statistics, was Sean Murphy. who only slugged 7 homers and a 131 OPS plus. But they just have an entire lineup full of average to above average hitters. When you have that, that will get you over the hump, especially when you have really solid pitching from guys like Jesus Luzardo and Sean Manaea. Of course, their bullpen was absolutely dominant this year with Liam Hendriks shutting it down in the closer role, as well as guys like Jake Diekman really coming back. Just great year from Athletics pitching this year.
All right, let's flip it over to the National League. We're going to start in the National League East with the Washington Nationals, 26-34 record, fifth in the NL East. Wow, Nationals coming off a 2019 World Series championship, as when they started the year 29-31. All hope looked lost for the Nationals, and they came back, won the World Series. Coming off that World Series, they had Juan Soto out for the first series against the Yankees, and just they did not look very good this year. Although Juan Soto is amazing, probably looks like the next Ted Williams. Great hitter. Obviously, Scherzer didn't have he still had a good year, just not as impressive as we thought. And so yeah, not much to say for the Nationals.
Yet again, we talk about Juan Soto. I mean, when I was looking at this guy at end of the year slash line, I probably just sat there for 5 minutes wondering how that's even physically possible for what is he, 21 years old? Is that right? Yeah, 21 years old. I mean, when the dude won the World Series, he was barely legally able to drink when he won the World Series, and he's slashing 351, 490. I mean, come on. It is ridiculous just how well this guy knows the strike zone. I mean, the next 20 years are just going to be incredible to watch this guy hit. I am so excited to watch that. Maybe he can go play for a good team that is not the Nationals. Sorry, National fans. Of course, Max Scherzer getting up there in age. Solid year from him. Still put up a 3.74 ERA. Not what we expect from Scherzer, but as a guy that is getting up there in age, I guess is to be expected a bit from him. Not much else to write home about for the Nationals this year.
Gotta love the Soto shuffle. One of the most intimidating things in baseball if you're an opposing pitcher. All right, fourth in the NL East, we got the New York Mets with a 26-34 record. Wow, I mean, what do I say about the Mets? Every year, just seems like they cannot get the job done. DeGrom, of course, had a great year. Probably one of the front runners for the Cy Young. Probably second, my number 2 in the Cy Young running this year. I mean, that's all we saw from the Mets was DeGrom pitching really well. And once again, I mean, the Mets offense just can't get anything done. DeGrom has great performances. The Mets just cannot back them up. The Mets offense just cannot back him up with their hitting. And this year, the Mets, their pitching was a big killer. They'd scored so many runs in a lot of games this year, and their pitching just could not get it done. They blew a lot of leads.
You know what's bad when stuff can just happen, and the only explanation for it can be, well, they're the Mets, and that was the case again this year. Just a lot of metting this year from a lot of people. Michael Conforto did have a really good year at the plate, slashing 322, 412, and 515, hitting 9 homers. Jacob deGrom, of course, doing Jacob deGrom things. Probably will not win the Cy Young. His ERA did get up there a little bit. Not saying that 2.38 is a high ERA, but when you're pushing for Cy Young, it's probably not going to get it done, especially in a 60-game season. Did finish with 104 strikeouts, though. That will lead the National League. Not quite all of baseball. That belongs to Shane Bieber. But he will lead the National League in strikeouts. Another just incredible year for deGrom. Edwin Diaz as well had a nice bounce back year after getting absolutely shelled last year. The Mets really screwed him up last year, but he bounced back a bit this year with a nice 175 ERA and 50 strikeouts. So good bounce back year for Edwin Diaz.
All right, third team in the NL East this year is going to be the Philadelphia Phillies with a 28-32 record. Wow. Coming into this year, the Phillies had very high expectations this year. They could not get it done. They couldn't go to the playoffs. I mean, when you sign Bryce Harper, you have Aaron Nola. I mean, you got all these guys. You got Didi Gregorius. They were expected to get to the playoffs and compete for a championship. The Phillies just could not get it done this year. I mean, disappointing year for the Phillies. Really thought they were able to get it done.
Yeah, especially in an expanded postseason is really disappointing for Philadelphia. And I mean, you just have to wonder if all that money they have, they're just not spending it correctly, shelling it all out for Harper. Of course, Harper was down a bit this year. He bounced back this year, slugging 13 homers with a 420 on base percentage. I think that's more what they were expecting Harper to do, but still, I mean, it's a lot of money to be paying a guy for that long of time if he's just not going to produce and if you can't build a team around him. Of course, Aaron Nola just pitched really well this year with a 3.28 ERA and 96 strikeouts. So I'm sure Philly fans will be mad again in the offseason, and they're going to have to make even more moves to bolster their lineup. Because if this team can't get in for a 60-game playoff or a 60-game season, they are not going to get in for a 162-game season. So they're really going to have to make some moves if they want to get in.
All right. Now, folks, I cannot believe I'm saying this, but the Miami Marlins, with a 31-29 record, are going to be the second seed, or the second place team in the NL East, and they'll be the sixth seed facing the Cubs in the playoffs. Wow, the Miami Marlins. I mean, can you believe this team is in the playoffs? First time in 17 years that they've made the postseason. Expanded playoffs helping out the Marlins. Yeah, so the last time they made it was in 2003 when they ended up winning it all. And wow, did not think we'd be saying this at the beginning of the year. Miami Marlins are going to be in the playoffs. And a lot of people were criticizing Derek Jeter for all the moves he's making, trading away Yelich, Stanton, all these top guys. But everyone in the Marlins lineup is getting it done, and they're really impressing me this year. Somehow they're going to get it. They're going to get into the playoffs and have a chance against the Cubs. And just point out one thing: at the beginning of the year, in their first series, they're facing the Philadelphia Phillies, and one of the Phillies announcers, after the Marlins won the first game of that series, said, "You can't be losing games to the bottom feeders." And so the Marlins kind of embraced that slogan the whole year, bottom feeders, and they'll be second in the NL East facing the Cubs.
Yeah, and I do just want to point something out. The Marlins have only made the playoffs twice in the history of the team, and they have won the World Series both those times. So I'm not saying anything here, but it is 2020.
It is.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
It could very well happen. They will be facing the Cubs in the playoffs. Just a really solid year. Another team whose lineup, Miguel Rojas just really came back at a great bounce back year, having an on base percentage of 392. Just a bunch of average hitters in their lineup that can carry them the rest of the way, kind of the same as the Athletics. And like I said, if you have a bunch of just average hitters, that will carry you. Of course, rotation just looked really strong this year from guys like Sandy Alcantara, Sixto Sanchez, and Pablo Lopez. Some of those trades finally paying off for the Marlins, though. Their rotation can be scary, and I think that will help carry them deep into the postseason. So I'm excited to watch this Marlins team and see how they do in the postseason.
Oh, we got a hot take. Marlins deep in the postseason. Let's see what happens. All right, the number one first team in the AL East or NL East this year is the Atlanta Braves with a 35-25 record. This lineup is scary. Look at their top four hitters in the lineup. First, you have Ronald. Top five. Yeah, you got Ronald Acuna Jr. You got the MVP frontrunner Freddie Freeman, Marcell Ozuna, Travis d'Arnaud, Adam Duvall. This team is full of hitters, and they can slug, as they showed against the Marlins in one game this year where they scored 29 runs. And, their pitching also pretty good, but obviously not as strong because they lost Mike Soroka to injury, and they're gonna have to have a lot of pitchers and rookies step up like Ian Anderson, and they'll be the 2 seed facing Cincinnati Reds in the playoffs.
Yeah, and of course we have Freddie Freeman, who will probably win the MVP. I mean, he just had an absolutely historic year this year with an on-base percentage of 462. Batting average, I know we don't talk about batting average a lot, but still, I mean, I think 41 batting average is still pretty impressive in itself, as well as slugging 13 homers. Max Fried really stepped up for the Braves here in their rotation. Of course, that huge injury to Mike Soroka early in the year really set the Braves' rotation back, as well as whatever happened to Mike Foltynewicz. But Max Fried really stepped up. Ian Anderson really stepped up coming up from the minors. Kyle Wright, I believe, will be their third starter. We'll have to see how he does. They lost Cole Hamels as well, so if they were to get past the Reds in the playoffs, I'm not sure how the rest of that rotation will look after Kyle Wright. So we'll have to see. A strong bullpen for the Braves as well. So really strong team. Of course, they didn't lose Soroka and Foltynewicz. I think they would have probably won the World Series this year, but losing those two, we'll have to see how it affects them in the playoffs.
All right, let's head over to the NL Central, where we have fifth in the NL Central is the Pittsburgh Pirates, 19-41 record. Worst team in Major League Baseball this year, record-wise. Pirates did not have a great year. Pitching and hitting, not very good. Would like to point out Ke'Bryan Hayes had a pretty good year this year. Not much to talk about with the Pirates.
Yeah, they have some prospects coming up, but not much that they can really build a team around. Of course, Ke'Bryan Hayes, really bright future ahead of this kid. Sure, he only had 85 plate appearances, but he still had a 376 batting average with 5 homers. So really strong year from him. I'm excited to watch him. Future Red Killer. So excited to watch that. Mitch Keller, another top prospect coming up, really solid year, and he only pitched 21 and two-thirds innings, but he still had a 2.91 ERA. Another guy with a bright future, as long as the Pirates don't screw him up like they like to do to a lot of their prospects. So let's see how they do. Again, not much to write home about for the Pirates, except for they clinched the number one draft pick.
Fourth in the NL Central this year is the Milwaukee Brewers, the 29-31 record. Somehow this team snuck into the postseason at the end of the year due to the Giants choking in their last series against the Padres. They'll be the 8th seed facing the Dodgers. I'm pretty sure everyone was really excited this year to watch Christian Yelich maybe even have an MVP year this year, but man, he just got off to a very slow start. Somehow, 12 home runs came along in the second half of the year, but he was cold to start off the year. Just some great pitching from Corbin Burnes and Devin Williams this year. Brewers are in the playoffs, 29-31 record.
Yeah, they're not a team whose offense really isn't that great. I mean, normally you'd have Christian Yelich carrying that offense. He was still their best hitter this year, with a nice 205 batting average. So I think that just kind of shows how not good the Brewers' offense was. Of course, they were a team carried by pitching. Corbin Burnes really had a breakout year this year. Cy Young contender, don't think he'll win it, but will be in the top three with a nice 2.11 ERA and 88 strikeouts. Of course, the big rookie, Devin Williams, my favorite to win Rookie of the Year. I mean, this kid is just, I don't know what to say about him. I mean, I think he only gave up a run all year. He struck out 53 batters out of the bullpen. I mean, his changeup is something else. So this kid is really bright future ahead of him. Of course, you have Josh Hader complimenting him in the bullpen. So back end of the Brewers' pen is really scary. However, I do not think they will make it past the Dodgers for very long.
Third in the NL Central this year, we got the Cincinnati Reds with a 31-29 record. We're going to delve into this team a little more. We both happen to be Cincinnati Reds fans. No bias at all towards our Cincinnati Reds. Wow. At the beginning of the year, well, actually, before the year started, we had really high hopes for this team with Castellanos, Moustakas, the new guys, and that Chevrolet commercial, Mike Moustakas, the new guy. Anyway, we got Castellanos, we got Moustakas. I mean, the rotation, probably one of the best rotations in the league. Trevor Bauer, Sonny Gray, Luis Castillo, even Tyler Mahle had a good year this year. But the Reds just started off really slow. I mean, they lost their first series of the year to the Tigers. Just really could not find their footing this year. And the Reds were so reliant on that home run ball. I mean, they scored, what was it, like 60% of their runs came off came off the long ball, and they just did not know how to play small ball this year. Couldn't find a way get runners on, you leave them on. I mean, this team just did not good situational hitting team. And some may say this is because of the method taught by Alan Zinter, Reds hitting coach. But I mean, if they don't hit a bomb, they're losing. But Reds pretty good year, snuck into the playoffs, and will be facing the Braves.
Yeah, of course, the offense was a big-time nightmare for them this year. Jesse Winker really stepped up towards the middle of August, where, I mean, there was a stretch of time where he was the best hitter in all of baseball. Massively cooled down in September. His average was up above 300 at the end of August. It fell all the way down to 255 by the end of the year. Still had a nice 142 OPS plus just because of how good he was in August. Of course, Joey Votto had a little bit of a bounce back year, got benched for a few games, came back, and started tearing the cover off the ball. Finished with, I want to say, about 12 homers as well. So good bounce back year for Votto. You love to see that from him. Castellanos, really good start to the year. After that, pitchers kind of learned how to pitch him, and it showed. Mike Moustakas had a lot of injury troubles, COVID scare, couldn't really get it going until the end of the season. So offense, not much to write home about. Of course, the rotation is what carried them to the postseason. Trevor Bauer, it's obvious Cy Young favorite, finishing with 100 strikeouts and a 1.73 ERA. I just love watching this dude go out and pitch. I really hope the Reds can find a way to bring him back over the offseason. Just absolutely love seeing the guy pitch. Of course, you have Luis Castillo and Sonny Gray backing him up. Just three incredible starters. All three of them could be an ace for this team. They'd be aces for any other team, that's for sure. And it's incredible when you have a guy like Tyler Mahle as your 5-starter when he'd probably be a 2 or 3 guy for most teams. Of course, big rookie year from TJ Antone as well, stepped up in a few starts when they had some injuries. Same with Michael Lorenzen. Raisel Iglesias looked incredible out of the pen down the stretch, but again, the offense was just a big problem with this team. We'll have to see if they can figure it out in the postseason.
What will Bauer do after this year? Big decision for Trevor. Will he go back to the Reds? Will he go back to LA where he played college for UCLA? Will he go to the Dodgers? We'll have to find out from Trevor Bauer. All right, the second team in the NL Central this year with a 30-28 record, the St. Louis Cardinals. Now, the St. Louis Cardinals played 58 games this year, and part of that was due to a COVID outbreak on the team. Apparently, we heard that all the players went to a casino and got COVID, and I think there should have been more punishment for the Cardinals because they were risking like the whole season. The season was in jeopardy with the outbreak from the Marlins and the Cardinals, and they somehow got second in the NL Central. Maybe the 5 seed facing the Padres. Paul Goldschmidt, standout hitter this year for the Cardinals. Yadi Molina, also pretty good hitter for his age. Yeah, Cardinals second in the NL Central.
Did you just call Yadier Molina a good hitter?
Yeah, he's been really good down the stretch.
Friends. Not a Hall of Famer, by the way. On that note, Paul Goldschmidt, of course, really great bounce back year from him. Only at 6 homers, but still had a 304 batting average with a 417 on base percentage. Going over the pitching, of course, Jack Flaherty is the expected ace, but Kwang Hyun Kim really stepped up, signing out of Korea with a 1.62 ERA. Not a big strikeout pitcher, but again, if you can pitch to contact and get outs, what does it matter? So we'll have to see how this Cardinals team does in the postseason. They're always a team in the postseason that can just pull out that magic pixie dust and somehow get far. Something I never understand. So we'll have to see if they can do it again this year.
All right, first in the NL Central this year is the Chicago Cubs with a 34-26 record. Cubs, really good year this year. Something to go over is Javier Baez. Not a great year from Baez. He just swings at every pitch he sees, and it just does not pay off. He strikes out a lot. He swings more on the first pitch than anything. If you cannot give him a fastball, because if he sees a fastball, he is hacking at it. As one announcer put it, there is not a fastball in the world that Javier Baez doesn't like. And so Darvish had a really good year. I mean, this man throws 12 pitches. He has very, very good pitch selection, and he throws like a slow cutter, fast cutter. It's a variation of the pitches, and really good year for Darvish.
Yeah, of course, the pitching kind of stepped up this year. Not great offensive years from guys like Chris Bryant, Javier Baez, and Anthony Rizzo. I've always been high on Ian Happ. He slugged 12 homers. Great start to the year. Kind of fell off a bit towards the end, but he's about one of the only players I actually like on the Cubs, so I'm happy to see him doing well. Of course, Darvish with his incredible 12 pitches. I mean, he is. I don't like him much because he plays for the Cubs, but if he didn't play for the Cubs, I would love to watch him pitch just because of how many pitches that he throws. You never really know what is coming with this guy. Nice 2.01 ERA for him. Again, probably lost a chance to winning Cy Young late in the year, having a few bad starts. But just really great bounce back year from Darvish. Kyle Hendricks also had a nice year in the rotation. So let's see if the Cubs can knock off. Shall we say knock off? I'm not sure. Beat the Marlins because you'd think they should, but hey, it's 2020.
All right, let's head over to the NL West. Fifth team in the NL West this year, Arizona Diamondbacks, 25-35 record. Not much to note on for the Diamondbacks this year. Didn't have a great year. Yeah, Diamondbacks just couldn't get it done. I mean, I don't know what else. What is there to say about the Diamondbacks? Just not impressive this year.
Yeah, that Madison Bumgarner signing is still really surprising for me. I'm not sure why they signed him. I'm not sure why Mad Bum wanted to go to Arizona, and he didn't pitch that well for them either. So, still a little confused about that one. Zach Gallen, on the other hand, really young kid that I'm still high on. He has a bright future ahead of him, putting up a 2.75 ERA. Not much to write home about from the offensive front. And that was basically the story for the Diamondbacks this year. So, of course, they traded Starling Marte since he will be a free agent after this year to the Marlins. So, it's going to be a while until we see some more competitive baseball in Arizona.
Fourth in the NL West this year is the Colorado Rockies with a 26-34 record. Not too much to say about the Rockies. They were actually in a spot to maybe make the playoffs at the end of the year. Didn't have much of a chance. Just one thing to note, Nolan Arenado didn't have a great year this year. Had a drop-off year, not hitting very well for the Rockies. Not a great year for the Rockies.
Yeah, they had a really good start to start the year, which kind of surprised everyone. But They're the Rockies, and they fell off towards the end of the year. Trevor Story, of course, still young. Love watching this guy hit. 289 average from slugging 11 homers. Herman Marquez, ace of the staff with a 3.75 ERA. Besides that, really not much to write home about for the Rockies.
All right, the third team, third place in the NL West this year is the San Francisco Giants, 29-31 record. Of course, they had the same record as the Milwaukee Brewers, but they just did not have the tiebreaker. The Giants actually were in prime position to get into a playoff spot at the end of the year. They had 4 games against the Padres to finish out the year. Lost 3 out of 4. Fortunately, we're not able to make it. But the Giants were a surprise team in the West. No one really thought of them as a third place team or like a postseason contender this year. Many thought they were going to finish last in the NL West this year. Brought in Gabe Kapler as their manager this year. Really good overall performances from everyone this year. Mike Yastrzemski, hitting really well this year. I love watching that guy hit. Great hitter for the Giants. Surprisingly, Kevin Gausman had a good year for the Giants this year.
Yeah, Donnie Ecker, the new hitting coach for the Giants, was really able to just get some really good seasons out of a lot of Giants hitters. Guys that are washed up or just not, you don't hear from them much, all had really good, solid years, and that's kind of what carried the Giants for most of the year. Of course, they had that hot start, and all year I was just kind of waiting for them to fall apart because I'm like, the Giants can't keep it up for this long, right? It took until the last series of the year for them to finally fall apart, and they just missed the postseason. Of course, pitching was not a strong suit for them. Kevin Gausman did have a nice bounce back here at the 3.62 ERA, but pitching just couldn't get it done for them, and that's why they missed out on the postseason.
All right, second in the NL West, we have the San Diego Padres, or or as many people refer to them as the Slam Diego Padres, known for their grand slams at the beginning of the year. 37-23 record, second in the NL West this year, and they'll be facing the Cardinals in the playoffs. Great year from Fernando Tatis Jr. Probably is contending for the MVP in the NL this year. Had a great year to start off the year. Kind of fell off towards the end of the year, but a great year for Fernando Tatis Jr. Love watching that San Diego offense hit, and don't forget this, Tatis. Always swing 3-0 if you want to. Great hitter this year, awesome for the Padres. Pitching rotation was shored up during the year. They got Clevenger, of course. They had Dinelson Lamet. Great pitchers for the Padres.
Yeah, also Manny Machado had an incredible bounce back here. Him and Tatis' seasons were pretty comparable, to say the least. So I think both of them are in the MVP contention. Going over to the rotation, Dinelson Lamet had 2.09 ERA. Really strong year from him, starting to show off his potential. Of course, they got Clevenger at the deadline. Chris Paddock as well in the rotation. Really strong bullpen. So great team. They really went out the trade deadline and established themselves as a contender this year. So I believe the Padres were going to sneak in to a playoff spot at the beginning of the year. I saw that they had a lot of potential. I was not expecting this from them. So just incredible year from the Padres. I'm really excited to watch them in this postseason.
All right, the number 1 seed, or the first place in the NL West, and the overall number 1 seed in the National League, Los Angeles Dodgers, with a 43-17 record. That's what everyone was expecting at the beginning of the year. They did not disappoint, and great bounce back year from Corey Seager coming off of Tommy John surgery. Had a great year for the Dodgers in that awesome lineup they have with the Justin Turner, Cody Bellinger, got Mookie Betts. Just a great lineup for the Dodgers, and they can put up some runs. And great pitching performances this year from Kershaw and Walker Buehler.
Yeah, Corey Seager, I've always loved watching this kid hit, and I'm just really happy to see him finally playing well again this year. Of course, Clayton Kershaw, he's a guy you kind of think of as washed up right now. He still put up a 2.16 ERA for them this year, so I'm really happy to see Kershaw bounce back. Always been one of my favorite pitchers. Of course, we'll see how that translates to the postseason, because throughout his career, it has not translated well.
It's gotten him the nickname Postseason Kershaw for his poor performance.
Yes, it has. Also, Walker Buehler, Dustin Maeda back him up. Really strong rotation there. We'll have to see how LA does. Of course, this is a team where it is World Series or bust for them. Of course, they made it to World Series and lost 2 straight years. Last year, they had a really disappointing loss to the Nationals in the NLDS. So, this team needs to go far. They are expected to go far, and they need to go far. So that will wrap up our 2020 MLB season recap.